My name is Babou, and as I was introduced, I am an extremely passionate and, as you'll soon find out, very vocal advocate for female entrepreneurship. I truly believe that finding the ways to invest in women's entrepreneurial potential as manufacturers, as employers, as producers, as entrepreneurs, is one of the surest ways and the most powerful and effective way we have at rapid economic prosperity and also social well-being for the many, for the 99%, not just for the 1%. This has been my mission for my business for the last 5 years, and it continues to be. But in 2016, I became increasingly disillusioned and frustrated at the lack of progress I was observing. You see, like many of us, I was sure when I founded my company in 2013 that the key to accelerating women's economic participation and to unlocking all the what we call the multiplier effects of investing in women was enabling access to funding. I believed that funding was the solution. After all the research I looked at, all the data pointed at the fact that women still just receive 20% of all institutional investments worldwide. So we started with crowdfunding. We launched a crowdfunding platform out of Oslo to help women globally start, grow, lead successful and sustainable businesses. And it made sense. You see, I believe that crowdfunding, and I still believe this, and I believed it then, is also one of the most powerful tools we have in itself. It's revolutionary in that it democratizes the flow of capital from a small group and homogeneous group of people, usually white, more older, mature men, and opens it up to all of us, providing us, everyone, with the opportunity to invest and fund women-led businesses. So it was a no-brainer. But I think in retrospect, we were wrong. I was wrong. And I'll tell you why. Despite the mounting evidence to suggest that investing in women makes for smart economics, business sense, has a higher return on investment, and this has been proven from the UN to the World Economic Forum to the World Bank, despite the increase in number of women investors and angel investors, despite the amount of venture capitalists now focusing on gender lens investing globally. Despite all of that, we are still failing to invest in women. Let's take Europe, for example. While the number of venture capital raised by female-founded companies in Europe has more than tripled from 2012 to 2016, reaching an all-time high, a 6-year high at a mere 14.1% in 2016. When compared with the total of venture capital that went to all women, European companies, the share of investment going to women founders actually decreased. It dropped in 2017 to 11.3%, totaling around less than 2 billion euros. So what if the lack of funding isn't the problem we should be trying to solve? What if funding isn't the solution after all? What if maybe what we're trying to solve through the lack of access to funding is simply a symptom of a greater, larger, more unconscious problem at play, one that we need to overcome to be able to invest in women in equal measure, one that doesn't get fixed with just money. And by the way, the fact that most of us think that money is the only currency worth investing in when we're talking about contributing to women's economic empowerment says more about us as society than it does about those women. So what if funding isn't the first step? What if it's finding? Because I believe that to be what you cannot see, you first need to find and seek examples of who you want to be. We need to find examples of normal women, inspiring women, pioneering women, that both men and women, young and old, boys and girls can aspire to as well. And maybe, just maybe, the key to finding is believing. Because our actions, or dare I say our lack of actions, demonstrate that we simply do not believe. We do not believe that women can start, grow, scale, lead, sustain one successful businesses, let alone exit from them. We do not believe that women can build multi-million-dollar businesses, let alone unicorns. And by the way, unicorns is a term used by Silicon Valley to talk about billion-dollar companies. And we still do not believe that women can have kids and still be successful at a career. And why would we? When in addition to failing to invest in these companies, we're also failing to recognize women's contribution, economic contribution, to recognize their talents, their smarts in business, their potential. Why would we when we are invisible? When women are visibly absent from mainstream media? I know we live in a time where we can claim alternative facts, but I'd like you to indulge me for a second. And let's say the facts that I'm about to show you are real. According to the Global Media Monitor project, which was conducted in 2015 with, amongst others, the UN, only 5% of news stories on the topic of the economy had a woman as a central focus. And stories between 2010 and 2015, women made up only 24% of people featured in the media, across all channels. And that figure, sadly and unsurprisingly, remained stagnant during that time. It remained the same for 5 years. And online, women aren't faring any better. People like to bet on winning horses. No one likes to bet on a losing one. Our task is to broaden our mindset so that our vision of a winner goes from this to this. Because, let's not be mistaken, there are 200 million women-led businesses out there. Or, as I like to see it, there's 200 million opportunities to inspire. So let's not convince ourselves that finding inspiration and role models in this pool of choice is an impossible task. You see, it's no longer good enough to just state we cannot be what we cannot see. The quote in itself is widely used to reference the lack of representation in women across all sectors: politics, finance, research, entrepreneurship, you name it. Although in its intention to inspire, it still fails to inspire action. It makes of us merely smart commentators and passive observers of the problem, instead of making us participants, active participants and seekers of a solution. It gives us a kind of mea culpa, a kind of way out. You know, oh, I didn't become an entrepreneur because, well, I just don't see. Whether you're an investor, a journalist, a conference organizer, or even a female entrepreneur, it is no longer good enough to say we don't invest in women because we can't find. It's no longer good enough to just say we don't write about women because we cannot find. It's no longer good enough to say We didn't invite a woman to speak because we just can't find. And it's no longer good enough for us as women to not show up because we do not see. And it's no longer good enough to find excuses and yet fail to find examples. It is simply no longer good enough that we can recognize these figures purely by looking at their faces. We know their names, we know their companies, and pretty much more than we would like to know about them. And yet, we fail to recognize women like these by their face, by their name, by their company. Her name, by the way, is Sarah Blakely, and she is the founder and CEO of Spanx, and the only billionaire who has joined, women billionaire, who has joined the Giving Pledge, an initiative by Bill Gates himself and Warren Buffett that invites billionaires to basically give away their wealth to philanthropy. Yet, so many of us are still unfamiliar with Sarah's achievements. You see, the key to investing in women's economic and entrepreneurial potential is believing. And the key to believing is seeing. And the key to seeing is finding, not funding. I hope you're still with me. I also think part of the problem is that we put so much more value and emphasis in the things that we own, our material possessions, instead of the human capital and potential we have right in front of us, which are women. We spend on average 5 minutes of every day looking for lost items, whether our keys, our bags, our purses, our cars, our phones, at a personal cost of $2.7 billion. And that cost is the cost that we pay for replacing these items that we lost. And what is sadly the truth is that figure of 2.7 billion, it is more than the equivalent of money we gave to female-led companies in Europe. Remember this graph? We recognize the importance of things in our lives. We even have really good words for them. We call them valuables. That's why when we lose them, we say things like, "Hey, have you seen my keys?" And what do we do next? What do we intuitively do next? We take the time to go and find them, to search for them, to look for our valuables. Yet, we fail to do the same when we say things like, "Hey, I can't be what I cannot see." In addition, each day, we spend an increasingly a hell of a lot of time online. We make around 3 billion searches on Google a day. That is 1.2 trillion searches a year. And much of this is searching for information, browsing the web, surfing the web, or, as I like to say, wasting our time. And this obsession with being online has led us to an increasing fear of what we call FOMO, the fear of missing out. But I think instead, what we should really be fearing is the fear of FOLO, the fear of losing out. Because it often seems that it's only when we lose something, it's only in loss that we are moved to action. We are moved to finding solution. Think about the time you lost a job, a friend, your home, your freedom. Did you wait and take stock? Maybe instead of talking about the losing facts of investing in women, i.e., women still don't have, women still don't own, as a way to engage all of us and move us all into action, to act, to find, to invest, we need to place the emphasis on our collective loss. What are the lost opportunities in investing in women's economic potential? I'll tell you what the losses are. we lose out on adding 12 trillion to our global economies, and in doing so, lifting so many of us out of poverty. We lose out on sending 15 million girls to school, giving them equal chance at education. We lose out on the opportunity to curb hunger worldwide by providing food to 793 million people, 155 million of which in 2016 were kids under the age of 5, suffering from extreme and repetitive malnutrition. We lose out on the opportunity to give and save the lives of 4.2 million infants who otherwise would die in the first year of life because of poor access to health and maternal care. Should I go on? At what cost is the price of our inaction too much? Maybe when we fully appreciate the value of which we are losing by ignoring to act, when we fully take ownership of women's economic empowerment as our own loss, we will finally be inspired to action. To recognize the incredible and invaluable contribution that 200 million women make every day through their businesses, to our families, to our communities, to our economies, to the planet. So in 2016, I was disillusioned, I was frustrated, and I was pissed off. But I was tired of finding excuses for myself. So I was moved to action. That's why in 2016, we launched Globally Spotted, a discovery platform with a mission to raise more visibility for inspiring companies started and founded by women worldwide, those with innovative, smart, purpose-driven business models. Because who are we ultimately if we do not leverage and showcase the intellectual capital and property of half of the world's population? So we searched for female entrepreneurs who are providing solutions to some of the world's most pressing challenges of our time, working towards sustainable future, working towards sustainable goals, or simply those who are trying to provide for their families. We found what we believed. We found not just one, not just two. We found hundreds within just 1 month. What fails us as a company is that we are still a small team and we do not have the resources to highlight, to write about all the companies that we find as fast as we would like to. We find women like Jennifer, who I found, by the way, at 1 o'clock in the morning one day, searching, as I do, on female founder group pages on Facebook. She's working on something I believe is truly transformative. She's developed a scanner that can scan any job ad for gender bias in the words. They could show you what words are more masculine and what words are more feminine. They can tell you how masculine a job ad is. And then it neutralizes those words to increase the chance of more women and men applying to these jobs in equal measure. We're constantly talking about how do we get more women at work. This is one of the solutions, how. Also, Glowy. Glowy is a company started by Sandra in France. She's trying to develop through bioluminescence, which is basically the production and emission of light by a natural organism from animals, from the sea, to be able to find, and she has been able to find, a sustainable source of energy to be able to power our cities. Or even Lisa. Lisa works on predicting weather in the tropics, where 80% of the people who live there are farmers. And by doing so, she's able to help them preempt and increase their yield in production, and also their profits. And then finally, there is Vanessa. Vanessa started a fire tea, which is actually made of a plant called moringa in Cameroon, which has amazing properties of 76% higher nutrients, 50% higher antioxidants. And she discovered this plant as a solution to a problem she was finding in her family. Her mother died of diabetes, and most of her family are affected by diabetes. And the properties within moringa tea and the leaves actually reduce the effects of diabetes. And finally, I would like to leave you all with this last thought. We may sometimes fail first, be slow to act. We may sometimes be disillusioned, feel frustrated, and even angry. But please, please remember this. Faith is to believe what you do not see. The reward of that faith is that one day, very soon, you will see what you believe. Thank you.